Parents, does anyone want a intelligent, creative, communicative, and problem-solving child? I'm sure by now every hand will be up. Well, I have good news for you. It can happen. Hi, I am Dr. Doris Sims, and I am a child growth and development specialist. And on today, our topic is going to be how you can grow your child's brain. Our objective on today will be, you're going to be able to identify the growing brain as a work in progress and realize that it is an enormous amount of growth that happens within the first 5 years of life. We're also going to be able to describe the child's early experiences and how they shape the growth of the brain. And you then will be able to give at least 3 ways you can support your child's brain development and growth. So for today, we're going to discuss brain development and the earliest experiences that will develop and grow their brain. We're going to talk about research and how the research has helped us support the fact that early growth and development of the brain is very important. And then we're going to talk about learn and share strategies that you as a parent can use in your own environment to grow your child's brain. Now, what does the brain look like? You'll notice here that the brain has 2 spheres, one left and right. The brain is the most complex part of the human body. And the brain is where the intelligence is. It is the interpreter of the senses, and it's the initiator of body movements and the controller of behavior. So you see, the brain has quite a job to do throughout a person's life. Scientists have learned more about the brain in the last 10 years than all other times in history because of the accelerating rate of research. We know that there is a 5-year period of potential growth, which is the most crucial period of human development. The time for this growth is from conception until the child is about 5 years old. So now remember, I said that conception, that means the brain begins to grow in utero, inside the mother's stomach. The brain begins to grow and then continues to grow after the child is born until the first 5 years of their life. Now, this is a picture that shows us the growth and development of the brain. When the child is born, 25% of the brain growth is there. By the time the child is 5 years old, there is 90% of the growth of the brain and the brain's potential. So that means that from birth to 5, 90% of the volume of the brain and the growth and information of the brain is obtained. Only 10% of growth and development is after the age of 5. That is phenomenal. So now we see the brain, how it changes after birth. You notice in the picture on the left, there's not a lot of brain activity and brain growth. But by the time the child is 6 years old, or the blue side, 90% plus of the brain has been developed. So most of the brain cells are there before birth, but the brain cells make most of their connections during the first 5 years of life. How does this happen? Is this really true? Well, we have determined, or the scientific community has determined, that parent-child interactions are the most important part of brain growth and development. The more a parent or a caregiver interacts with the child, the greater will be the growth and development of the brain. So, parent-child relationships serve as the earliest building blocks for physical, cognitive, and emotional development. Parents can build stronger foundations for their children by actively participating in these exchanges. Now, these exchanges are called serve and return interactions. These serve and return is a lot like the game of tennis. When a child babbles, gestures, or cries, it's up to the parent to respond with appropriate words or hugs or attentiveness that interprets what the child is really trying to say. Now, this creates a back and forth between the parent and the child. So for instance, let's say the child is in the crib, but they wake up in the morning and the child begins to cry. So the mother comes in or the father comes in and says to the child, "Why are you crying? What's the matter? Are you wet? Are you hungry?" On and on. So the exchange goes forth. The child now stops crying and begins to look at the parent and begins to become very, very animated. This is what is called serve and return. So all of this happens with the parents and the caregivers. This simply reinforces the neural connections being built in the child's developing brain. The more that is done, the more the child, these connections will be made to grow and develop the child's brain. Now look at these pictures. Does anyone see a cell phone in this picture? In these pictures? Do you see a television in these pictures? Do you see any iPad in the pictures? No, you do not. What you see is sheer parent or adult interactions, serve and return. The talking, the laughing, the cuddling, the fun activities that a parent or a caregiver gives to the child is what makes those crucial connections to build the child's brain. Now, how does the brain work? What happens in a child's, in a baby's life or a child's life that affects the brain depends on the caregivers, as I mentioned. The brain makes connections based on what the baby does or what the child does. If your baby or your child does not do certain things, some parts of that brain will not connect. Now that's almost frightening because the brain operates on what is called a use it or lose it principle. The synapses or connections between the cells form as the brain experiences his or her surroundings and makes attachment with the caregivers. So this use it or lose it principle is just what it says. If the child is not talked to, if they're not read to, if they're not played with, hugged and kissed, the brain connections are going to be formed, and eventually those brain connections will be lost. Only those cells that are frequently activated are retained. So, how does the brain work? The brain grows in spurts. There are prime times when a child learns things best. Now, this means that a child learns colors and numbers and various information at certain important times in their life before the age of 5. So we can learn throughout our lives, yes, but remember 90% of what a child learns and gathers is learned and gathered within the first 5 years of life. Do you remember hearing the song from First 5? It says, talk, read, sing, it changes everything, and that's the truth. Learning starts before your child goes to school. How many parents have said, I'll be glad when you go to school. Maybe they can teach you something. Believe me, by the time they are in school, they have already learned 90% of what they're going to get. So enrichment is good for all children. Children need to be enriched. And you don't have to have expensive toys or expensive things that they can use to make them smarter. Do you know that the common things in your house can be used to expand the child's brain? Give a child a pot and a wooden spoon. Put them on the floor and see how long they stay there and how much fun they will have. Children, this is something else that we know, that children with strong emotional bonds are more ready to learn than children that are not, which simply means that a child that's in a detached, unemotional environment will not learn nearly as well as a child that is well attached and emotionally attached to those caregivers. So here we have it. Before the age of 5, 90% of a child's brain development happens. So if the person then goes on and gets 3 PhDs, then that's only the other 10% of that developing brain. Isn't that amazing? So the question is how to treat your child's brain. What do we do? How do we make sure that brain is nurtured and ready for growth? Make sure your child lives in a safe environment. That's crucial. No abuse. Safe. The child should feel like they're safe. Now, many times, families live in environments that on the outside of the house, there might be chaos. There may not be a lot of safety. But within the child's personal environment, that environment can exude safety. And the child should know that they are safe in your presence with you. They are safe. You are their caregiver. They are safe with you. Now, another one is make sure your child's brain is well nourished. So that simply means you eat well. You as a parent, you ate well when the child was in utero. Now the child is born, you're going to make sure they eat well, which simply means there's an absence of fat and salt and sugar. An absence of fat, salt, and sugar. So eat healthy. Another one is make sure your child drinks plenty of water. The brain should never be thirsty. How many parents have I talked to who have said their child does not drink water, who have said they don't drink water? Water is crucial for brain growth and development. The brain should never be thirsty. Now, when you discipline your child, many times children they are always shorter than you are. And so what will a parent do many times? Hit the child on the head. Never hit your child on the head. And that is because the brain is very fragile and the out, or the skull also is soft before the child is between the birth and 5 years old. So if you hit the child on the head too hard, you could actually create a hemorrhage in the brain that you will never know was there, and can alter and hinder a child's growth and development. Another one is never throw your child high up in the air. Now, many times, especially when the child is under the age of 1, a parent will throw the child up high and then the child will come down. Now, a parent might ask, well, what's the matter with that? That damages the brain on many occasions. The brain goes to the top of the skull, up here. It hits the top of the skull and then bounces back. That is very dangerous for the child because the brain, again, might hemorrhage and cause some severe damage. Again, you never shake your child. Shake them because the brain then bounces back and forth on the skull. You don't want that to happen. You avoid loud noises and overstimulation. So the shouting and the screaming, avoid that. That traumatizes the child, that traumatizes their insides. So you want to make sure that does not happen. And also, again, make sure the child feels safe. You can even what is it you call it? You have a safe environment at home. It's a healthy and a safe environment where the children cannot stick things in sockets, and you safeguard your home is what I want to say. So you can do that, and that is extremely, extremely important to safeguard your home. What parents can do to grow their child's brain power. Remember that the brain development begins before birth. So your nutrition makes a big difference in brain development, even before the baby is born. When I was at Cal State LA, I had a student in my class, and he said that his child was mentally retarded. And then he started crying, and he said the child was because the mother did not want to gain weight. And so she drank coffee all day, every day, rather than eating food. The baby's brain was not developed well and had some mental issues and mental problems. So your nutrition makes the difference in brain development. Please believe me. What parents can do to grow your child's brain? What can you do? Well, put down the devices and talk and play with your child lovingly. Some might say, well, what about the TV? A TV is fine, an iPad or a device, a telephone device. But remember, there is no back and forth serve and response. There is no interaction. It is flat. The child cannot talk to the TV or talk to the phone and get a response. They can only do that with you. So put the devices down. You begin to talk, play, and read with your child. Reading should start early. When the child is born, start reading with them. The first thing a parent says, well, they don't understand what I'm saying anyway. They may not, but it is the beginning of reading. And research has indicated that the more you read to the child and the earlier you read to the child, the more you will have a reader in your home. So you develop your child's reading patterns. What else can a parent do? Provide enriching experiences, play games, have fun with the child, laugh and tickle and scream and whatever things, any kind of thing that is needed for the little child. Expose your child to music, all different kinds of music. And may I say this, forget the rap. That rap music with all that profanity does not grow a child's brain. As a matter of fact, it hinders the brain. So expose your child to different kinds of music genres, but it's so important for them to have that. Number one, you don't know if your child is a musician or not. And with that exposure, those kinds of abilities begin to come out. Limit TV and other devices and do not use them as babysitters. And I know that parents are real good at doing that. The child is a babysitter. I was at a restaurant, a mother and a father, or a male and female, I don't know who they were. And there was the little boy that was there with them. And they both were on their phones. This little fella looked at one and then looked at the other, looked at the one and looked at the other, and then stood on top of his chair, looked at the one, looked at the other, and then stood on top of the table. Now, what was this little child telling the parents? I want you, look at me. I'm here, talk to me, have fun with me. And then when they saw him standing on top of the table, they then stopped looking at their phones and shouted at him and told him to get down and stop it. And I looked at this and I said, that little fella was smarter than the parents. All he was saying was, I want you to respond to me. So talk, love, respond, and encourage our children all the time builds the brain. Remember, it is never too late to increase brain power. So a parent might say, oh, I didn't do that when the child was 2 or 3 or 1. Well, it's never too late. Start now. And what I want to do right now is to play a video. And the video is entitled 0 to 3, How to Grow Your Child's Brain. It will be extremely helpful to you as a parent. If you have any questions, write them down and I will entertain the questions later.
In the 1900s, a parenting manual recommended, never hug and kiss children. Never let them sit in your lap. If you must, kiss them once on the forehead when you say goodnight. Boy, how things have changed. A robust body of research has confirmed what parents have always known by instinct, that it is precisely these everyday moments, showing affection, comforting, and playing with young children, that build strong, healthy brains. The first 3 years of a child's life are uniquely important because this is the most sensitive period for brain development. The experiences a child has during this time will shape the architecture of her brain and build the connections that allow her to develop important lifelong skills like problem solving, communication, self-control, and relationship building. New brain connections are forming at a rate of 700 every second in response to the baby's experiences out in the world. These connections help the baby learn the essentials to survive and thrive within her family, community, and culture. It's the quality of a baby's relationships that has a major influence on which brain connections take place and the strength of these connections. What does this mean? Early experiences matter. Supportive relationships in the early years plant the seeds for love, safety, and security, which forge a set of connections that help children learn and bond with others. The brains of children who experience ongoing maltreatment are wired to sense danger and to respond to threat. This increases children's anxiety, fear, and feelings of insecurity, which interferes with learning. A baby's brain connections reflect the quality of the care she receives. These differences have impacts that can last a lifetime because our brain connections affect the way we think, the way we learn, and the way we manage our feelings and build relationships with others, all the way into adulthood. So what does your baby need to build healthy brain connections? She needs you to tune into her signals, her words, facial expressions, and actions, and respond in ways that respect her individual needs. We call this responsive care. When you respond in this sensitive way, you are letting your child know you understand what she's telling you and that you respect her needs. These loving back-and-forth interactions build strong, positive brain connections that help your child thrive over time. How else can you nurture healthy brain connections? By seeing your child as a partner in your interactions. Like a game of catch, it's all about back and forth. One of you starts the interaction, the other responds. You talk to your baby, then give him time to respond with sounds, words, or actions. Then you answer back. It's a dialogue. There's another, perhaps surprising experience that also nurtures healthy brain development. Dealing with some stress. That's right, a little bit of stress goes a long way toward building a strong, healthy brain. Helpful stress is brought on by the everyday challenges we face, like muscling through a difficult task or experience. These challenges help us learn new skills and how to solve problems, such as figuring out a puzzle or managing difficult feelings, like not getting everything we want. Working through this kind of stress is what allows us to get along with others and ultimately succeed in work, school, and life. Your child is able to tolerate stress because you are there to support him, and he has learned he can depend on you. So watch your child carefully to see what he is capable of and when he really needs your help. Giving your child a chance to struggle a little helps him learn how to solve problems on his own. See yourself as a coach, offering ideas and suggestions, but don't take over. Step in only when it's necessary. Remember that it's mastering new challenges that builds brain power and the motivation to learn. So what matters the most? You. You are the most important person in your child's life. So remember, you are not just singing lullabies, stacking blocks, changing diapers, playing peekaboo, or sharing stories. You are helping your baby build a healthy brain.
Thank you for your attendance.